So I was here last year, and I've been in Finland, I think, 2-3 times per month. Just shortly about me, Pekka already said it. I'm working here at the garage. It's a venture garage for startups from mainly Aalto, but also from areas outside Finland. I'm since yesterday coordinating a new center in Stockholm. It's called the KTH 6 Cloud Innovation Center. It's we put all the researchers from KTH Cloud and from the 6 Cloud people and put it in one center, and I'm coordinating that. And the good thing is that then when we have a number of projects, we actually now start to actually talk to each other more. So this is a mail I got yesterday, actually, from a startup I co-founded and still running. We're now working on a new demo. I have to explain some parts, but it will take some time. Our main computer has crashed. I need this demo next week because then I'm going with Aalto Entrepreneurship Society to Silicon Valley, and I would like to show this demo to some investors. But this is the old way of doing startups, I think. You have very little money, and eventually you might have a PC to work on, and of course you know you should do backups on a regular basis and so on, but you don't have the money basically. I'm really mostly talking about startups today. So when we look at a small company growing up to a bigger company, like Janne was mentioning here, agile enterprises, we're going more or less from a public cloud domain up to a private, maybe to your own machines completely. But even if you go up here to your own hardware, I believe that you will use some kind of cloud technology. If not, so for taking care of peaks or doing projects with other companies and so forth. So this is a picture I see. You're a startup, you use whatever is there. You can't afford to have your own hardware. You can't afford to be too picky about security. You just need to get up and running and test your things. If you can't afford it, you don't exist. So that's the choice they have. Then you grow up and you become a small company, hopefully, and here you start to buy some more hardware yourself, or maybe buy some hosting service and so on. Still probably living in the public domain quite much and going back and forth here. And then later, as I already mentioned, the larger corporation. So I talk about startups, and startups really like clouds. And this was a statement from, I think, 2 years ago from Paul Graham, who is the founder and managing person for Y Combinator that I will mention a little bit more later. Y Combinator is a seed accelerator taking care of startups in a very rapid way, and very many of them that comes out from here are using cloud computing either for their own IT or actually for the new products that they create. But we're already there now. I mean, this was like a visionary view of how important cloud will be for startups. But if you look at the big investment, I mean, venture capital firms like Benchmark, again, Morten Mikkos is related to that. If you look at their portfolio, almost all of them are using Amazon cloud services in one way or another. And if you look at some of them, they completely only live in the cloud. And here's a link to see where this claim comes from. In many cloud presentations over the year, we've shown pictures of cloud projects like companies like Animoto, Dropbox, maybe Zencoder. These are like success cases showing how you can do it if you do it right. Then we have all the other companies. What I'm saying here is that there's such a big sector here on producing these cloud services. To be a real cloud provider or a cloud software provider or cloud management tool provider, you know. And again, Morten, he is nowadays the CEO of Eucalyptus, who is considered the private cloud software vendor at the moment, even though there are new coming up all the time. If you look into this box, this is I could fill this with much more, but we always talk about Amazon because they were very early showing that there is a business here. But there are GoGrids and FlexiScale, and of course Microsoft is definitely stepping up here with their Azure services, and absolutely building a huge data centers to support this. I promised to say something more about Y Combinator. It's based in Mountain View, California, and what they do is that they bring in early stage startups that basically only have a technology to show an idea sometimes only. They look at the teams and look at them if they are really good engineers or not. The business plan is secondary in this scenario. Then they give them a short term inside the Y Combinator. They give away 2 to 10% of the shares to do this. And out comes a number of startups that actually nowadays, a fourth of them are funded before they leave, 12 weeks later. And that's only because this is such a success story. But if you start something like this in Finland, we would not get this in the first few years, but it's a nice concept. Very different from what you would say an incubator looks like. This is much more agile, it's much more technology focused, and very interesting. So enter Finland. So this is actually 500 meters away from here. You should go there if you're in this area. Very enthusiastic, big push from Aalto, putting in quite much money, I guess, I don't know the numbers, on marketing and actually getting quite good coaches there. Coaches that have really succeeded in earlier stage startups, and they go there and help for free, they don't charge. Go and help these startups with advice and connections and so forth. And it has been doing 2 boot camps so far, and this was October 1st, so it's not that far away in time. And this was 1 person per startup that was in the final, and the winner is on the very right here. So this is more now going to the title, Cloud Innovation Platforms. And my idea here is to look more about this platform layer. I will show the layers next few slides. There are coming up a number of platforms, and these are not new, but you can go to Salesforce and do development. You can do Ruby Rails applications and drop it on Heroku, who will take care of the cloudification. We have Windows Azure, the whole .NET world can go there and do their .NET applications, and suddenly they are completely cloudified. You develop applications that ends up on some phone, same here. Facebook is something that people don't regard as something else than a social networking thing, but they have a huge platform for developing new things. And people start to, they definitely use this, but we usually talk about these guys, the Google App Engine and others, but Facebook is definitely in the game. So this is the layer I was mentioning. So in the very bottom we have the cloud infrastructure. This is where Amazon typically lives. So if I want run some specific OS on some specific virtual machine, I'll buy some time on a cloud infrastructure vendor. Same goes for storage, of course. Then the next layer, a little bit higher up in complexity. Now we go directly into a platform. And then when we come to this platform, the platform will tell us, well, you have to use this and this tool, and this language. And if you do that, we will take care of the rest. So the platform takes care of this part. Then you sit here and develop your services, and you launch them, and eventually they end up in some person's browser or mobile phone. So this is what I'm. So for instance, here we have the OV ending up in a Nokia phone, or you do things on Google App Engine, it might end up in an Android phone. People very much like to talk about the cloud and the client, and this is the picture. Now, why Cloud Innovation Platform? Why do I call it innovation at all? The old way of doing new things is to either you have a need yourself to do things, something, and that's usually a good way, because then you know the problem fully. If you don't have that, or you just have a good guess, you do some marketing analysis. I mean, you go out and talk to people, you go out and talk to your possible customers, and you do a lot of work. And then meanwhile you try iteratively, hopefully, to develop something that they need. That's good, but if you have the power and time and money, of course, you can produce a platform like Google App Engine. And then you serve this platform for anyone who has a credit card. And they will start to do all this old way of doing things. They have their own niche, or they know someone else who has a problem, and they start to develop applications on your platform. So what happens is that most of them fail, like you would have, but some of them succeeds and get customers. And the way they succeed, you would never imagine. So if you think about the Apple people, I don't think they even imagine Angry Birds application, but someone did Angry Birds here in Finland, and they make money, and Apple do too, because the Angry Birds customers are also the Apple customers, at least when they're running on an iPhone. There's definitely a danger being a platform user. If you're a little bit paranoid, as most people are who are doing startups, you're always afraid someone will steal your ideas. Now, you're not only storing your data in the cloud, but you're also storing your code in the cloud, and you're working in the cloud, and let's say Facebook suddenly steals your idea. They can probably, if you're paranoid, they have all the things because it's inside them. It's in their machines. So there are definitely things here, but there's no good case I found yet that some of these big players had done that, because that would be a disaster for the platform owner. But still, if you do some really huge and smart thing, do you trust your platform, basically. What I started to do here in Stockholm now, inspired by Y Combinator and Alto, is to create a seed accelerator in Stockholm area, where we focus very much on teams coming in from actually only 3 technical areas: cloud computing, Internet of Things, and the third one is media transfer, because the people inside here are experts on these 3 areas. So we don't try to be expert on everything. We take what we're good at, bring in teams, and do the whole thing with boot camp and development with the angels and coaches and so forth. So there's nothing new here, except that we finally got a yes to do this. I tried for 3 years to get this done in Stockholm, and Alto beat me with a year easily. So this thing I wrote here all the time, the Cloud Innovation Center, where I have these researchers from KTH and Swedish Institute of Computer Science, I see them as an innovation engine here, because think of this more like a public area with some private funding sometimes, still being within the academia. Here we bring in students and company projects, and here we do agile, platform, cloud development, and eventually some of them will end up in one of this seed accelerator. So how does it look more like this? If you really accelerate the seed accelerator, we are developing a cloud innovation platform for the startups that are inside this environment. So if you think Alto, and I try to do this here too, if you think Alto teams like the one I mentioned, the Stagecraft, they could need some cloud services from the seed accelerator. And when we deliver these cloud services from them, the next time, the next bootcamp, the next startup that comes, probably have the similar questions like development environments and so forth, that we can pre-prepare for our startups and get more and more lined in for our startups. And this is only if we choose a few technical areas, not trying to be good for everyone.